let's call the village council meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additions, deletions, or changes to the proposed agenda for this evening? Being none. Roll call.
President Schneider,
Present.
President Pro Tem Dyke, Councilmember Alec, Councilmember Kalka. Present. Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Councilmember Glasser,
Present.
Councilmember Steffler. Present.
Okay. Communications. Is this different than the report we got last couple of meetings? The Lapeer County EMS report?
Yes, that's the monthly meeting.
Okay.
The other one was the annual.
Oh, okay, great. Are they intending to do this on a monthly basis?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I see what's going on. Okay. Any comments on Lapeer County EMS? Okay. All right. Moving on to our minutes of our regular meeting of April 19. Just a couple of tiny ones. Regular agenda, paragraph number 1, approval of auction items. President Pro Tem Dyke noticed that crane was on the list and asked if it was going to be, that word's supposed to be replaced? The D?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, it says replacement, okay, and one other one, council manager comment, 4th paragraph down, one begins with President Pro Tem Dyke. The next to last line sentence begins with, when the flag is replaced, it needs to be stored. I presume that next word is appropriately? Okay, so yes, President Pro Tem Dyke stated the Boy Scouts, that period. So second to last line that begins with, when the flag is replaced, it needs to be stored. And I'm presuming that words need to be appropriately?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's all I had. Anyone else on minutes? General fund? Major streets? Local streets, Parks and Recreation Fund, Downtown Development Authority Fund, Sewer Fund, Water Fund, Equipment Fund. Get to know those words by heart. Payroll Register Report. DDA Director's Report. Right, I'm out of order. No. The mileage report for the DPW, which I think was asked about at our last meeting by President Pro Tem Dyke, and so we have it now. Okay, so we got that, and is it? Yeah. Okay, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Steffler, to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion or discussion at all? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously approved by council members in attendance. Now is the time for public comment for any item on our regular agenda for this evening. Is there any public comment? Being none. Regular agenda item number 1, DDA fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. Kim, did you want to make a presentation?
In front of you should have the budget for the 22-23. You're getting it a little bit early just because we need to have, if there's any changes, it has to be done before the end of the year, the fiscal year. So we wanted to make sure we get it to you. we're doing pretty well. We increased our street fund, our downtown streetscape fund, because we're trying to spruce up the downtown. So we've got a fund there that has $27,000 in it that we're looking to do some improvements downtown. So we've got a couple ideas of what we're looking to do, and they are in our TIF plan. So that one we did increase a little bit. We have made our line items more informative, so you can see exactly what is coming out of what line item. We increased we put DPW snow removal for the sidewalks. We broke down our lawn and landscape maintenance, just so my board and so the council also has an idea of where our money is going for each line item. And that's really about it. I mean, we're doing well with staying within our budget. We will have the budget amendments at your next meeting, at your June meeting.
Council, anybody have any questions after scrutinizing the proposed draft budget for DDA 2022, 2023?
The general maintenance Patrick Park water mean translate to the water fountain?
Yes. Yeah, I tried to break it out so you would see exactly, like for the Pocket Park and the flowers for Main Street. Because my board is usually asking, how much is for this and how much is for that. So by breaking out in the line items, it makes it a bit easier for them to see as well.
So what is our confidence level that this year's Heritage Festival will bring in the same donations as last year's? I'm assuming that this is the $16,500 was last year's revenue.
Right.
And we're assuming that this year will be the same donations. So we're going to budget for it and then hope that's what we get for sponsorship and donations.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, we did really, really well last year. We better than normal. I think it's efforts and everything we did. Last year was the first year that we did make a profit for the Heritage Festival, but our sponsorships that come in have been very close. So we are hoping the car show and getting the band again and a little bit more extra this year than we will bring in more money to.
See, the car show's a separate line item.
No pressure.
Well, you have a separate line item.
That probably goes in the theory of success builds upon success. And since it did so well last year,
My
that
only
hope and
concern is that,
presumption.
but the only concern I have is with everything. I mean, so last year we had a lot of cars. We had a lot of people travel here, and gas was $2 and some cents a gallon, not $5 a gallon.
Yes.
That makes sense.
So
Under $5 a gallon.
we still have a few
It went
months.
below 4 and jumped up again because somebody sneezed, I think. So it jumped above $4 a gallon again. Yeah.
Just,
But that,
just
you're
attendance,
right.
attendance to things like that usually go down when the economy gets tight.
One of the issues I think we'll want to discuss when, especially our budget workshop, is taking into account or considering the fact that we have inflation that's likely to last for quite some period of time, and we have to have flexibility and be concerned about exactly the issue you're raising. Yeah, because it can affect everything. So, well, success maybe.
Each year we have been doing better. That and with the holiday parade, I mean, it is amazing how many people came out last year and the year before, obviously we didn't have one, but it has been building and it has been getting better each year. So hopefully, yeah, gas prices won't hinder car shows. I've had a lot of calls already for car show registrations. I've had calls, I've got 4 people that are willing to volunteer and they're just really, so I think that we're finally on the map for the car show, and hopefully that the gas prices don't hinder that. But I think it really hinder with the weather.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about the car show people because they have a lot of money invested in their cars. And usually gas isn't their biggest concern, or else they wouldn't be driving what they drive. It's everybody else that comes to beer tents and other things that go on.
This money is usually there, none of that is from the beer tent.
Yeah.
We don't get any proceeds from that. All the proceeds from the beer tent goes to the Lions Club. That doesn't include anything. The Lions Club may change that. I don't know. It was talked last year that they may contribute more, but I don't know. We didn't bring that up last night. And I know our band cost is going to be down. So we've got family tradition Friday night and Saturday night. The band right now is only $1,200. And we will be finally tomorrow.
Anybody else with comments or questions?
Had a question. I saw on downtown maintenance utilities, there was in parentheses, including fireplace. Is that building in the fireplace that we're trying to get funding for?
Yeah, we were trying to estimate what it would cost to run that per month.
Mhm.
So we run it all year round. But we were just trying to think what.
Like a ballpark.
Yeah. So
Okay.
put money in there for that.
Anybody else? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the DDA fiscal year 2022-23 budget as proposed.
Support.
Motion by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Glasser, to approve the DDA's fiscal year budget for 2022-2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Objections? Unanimously approved by council members in attendance. Regular agenda item number 2, Resolution 22-05-01, that being the IFT revocation of certificate, 2015-077 amended. And there's 3 of them that we are to be addressing this evening. Do you want to make any sort of presentation on that issue, Kim?
Just kind of summarize, Grable received 3 IFTs as a result of their business being in the industrial park. They are obviously no longer there, so they cannot fulfill the reason why they got the certificates issued. Therefore, in order to officially revoke the certificate with the state, we have to have this resolution to revoke it, to get it to the state, and then the state approves that revocation and gives it to our assessor, which then takes it off the roll.
And then leaves that property available for new IFT.
Correct. So,
If somebody else.
so the
is-
new property owners
Right.
would be able to come and
Right.
apply for a new IFT certificate.
Need to go through this process for that to become available
Correct.
to the new owner. I have a question with regard to all 3 resolutions. It seems rather minor, but catches the attention of somebody like me. So the first whereas paragraph at near the very end says resolution established Village of Elmont Industrial District Number 1, the Industrial Development District asterisk. All of them have an asterisk. And so when I see one, what that normally means is there's a footnote somewhere,
Right.
but is there,
That should be removed.
okay, all 3 of them?
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause we wouldn't want anybody saying, what's the asterisk for?
Right.
What'd you leave out? Yeah, so that's, okay. Otherwise, I don't have any issues with that. Discussion, council?
So they're completely out of business, right?
They left Elmont. I believe they're still in business, but they left Elmont.
Those buildings are.
Correct.
I'll make the motion that we approve resolution 22-05-01, revoking the industrial facilities exemption certificate number 2015-077 amended with the noted correction.
Motion made by Councilmember Steffler, supported by President Pro Tem Dyke, to approve the resolution 22-05-01, that being the IFT revocation of certificate, number 2015-077 as amended. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Dyke.
Aye.
Feldman.
Aye.
Glasser.
Aye.
Steffler.
Aye.
Kolka. Aye. Schneider.
Resolution 22-05-01 is unanimously approved by council members in attendance. Moving on to agenda item number 3, resolution 22-05-02 for certificate number 2015-078.
I'll make the motion. We approve resolution 22-05-02, revoking certificate number 2015-078.
Motion made by Councilmember Steffler, supported by President Pro Tem Dyke, to approve resolution 22-05-02. Any further discussion?
Also with the removal of the asterisk.
Further discussion? I'm sorry? Is there further discussion? Roll call?
Feldman.
Aye.
Glasser.
Aye.
Steffler.
Aye.
Kolka. Aye. Dyke.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Resolution 22-05-02 is unanimously approved by those council members in attendance. Regular agenda item number 4, resolution 22-05-03, a similar IFT revocation for certificate number 2015-129 amended. I don't know if it matters, Kim. Do you know? The first resolution was personal property. The second resolution was real property, and this third resolution is personal property again. Do you remember what the difference?
It was the equipment that they had purchased. I don't
Additional
know.
new equipment?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So there's a distinction between the personal property was covered in the first one and the third one. Okay, all right. Okay, we have another motion or any discussion regarding this resolution?
Make this one too. We approve resolution 22-05-03, revoking certificate number 2015-129.
Support that.
Motion made by Council Member Steffler, supported by Council Member Kalka, to approve resolution 22-05-03.
With the noted correction.
Yes, with no correction. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Glasser. Steffler.
Aye.
Kolka. Aye. Dyke. Feldman.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye. Resolution 22-05-03 is unanimously approved by those council members in attendance. Now is the time in our agenda for public comment. For any non-agenda item, is there any public comment for non-agenda? Kim?
The DDA is working hard to get the banners up, the new banners. Unfortunately, the brackets that we have, the hose clamps, I guess you would call them, they are too big. So we've tried to work with them and they are not working, so we're returning them, and we're in the process of trying to find 150 other hose clamps that will fit up to a 6-inch pole. So as soon as we can get them, they will be going up.
Okay.
So.
Any other public comment for non-agenda? Okay, moving on to open discussion, park budget presentation. Bernie? Good to you.
Apparently, we were going way too fast this evening, so I'll see if we can slow it down a little bit.
Oh, thanks.
It's one thing to tell you what we're doing in the park. It's another one to show you. I do see different members of the council running through the park, but I don't know that they see what we're doing. So wanted to explain everything. Yes. It is absolutely amazing how many people I'm seeing using the park compared to other years. It's really starting to be a magnet that's attracting people. So what I wanted to show you was what we have accomplished and what we are working on and what plans we plan to do in the future for our 5-year plan. So as you can all remember what our old playset looked like and why we replaced it, you can see how many pieces were broken, how many pieces were missing. Next one. The slide was cracked, the steps were worn and rusted. It was unsafe. Literally, the kids should not have been playing on it, but it was the only thing we had. So now we were able to purchase a new playscape. We got our borders installed, our ADA ramp put in place, and our wood chips. And it is just amazing when the kids get out of school how many families are coming to the park and having their dinners in the pavilion and letting their kids play. We also added LED lighting underneath the pavilion, and on our spotlights are on the outside. We did this so that it would improve security, and it was a cost savings. And there was actually some money left over from the grants that Roberta was able to get. And on the left-hand side there, you see a little dirt path going out to the bridge. What we wanted to do was put electricity out to the bridge, that when we apply for the next grant, we'll actually be putting lamp posts on either side of that bridge so that you can actually see it at night, or even when it's foggy out, that when someone's riding a bicycle or whatever, that they don't run into the dip or the river. So one of the other things that we maintain is our sled hill, the ice rink, so that we have some winter activities. We have our Winter Fest where Terry Roach brings out his barbecue, and we have a barbecue, and we had quite a turnout this year. And some of the other things we do was, I noticed during one of the music in the parks, these two young gentlemen walked up and had been fishing. And I didn't even realize how many people fish in that river. And the way that they explained it is they had to sneak around by the wastewater treatment plant, and they had to climb through all these brush and trees and everything to get to their fishing hole. And it was like, well, there's got to be a better way for you guys to get to your fishing hole. So music in the park was one of the other big features that we have. And it was during music in the park that someone came and got me and said, "Do you realize there's a bike path back here?" And I was like, no, there was no way. The brush was too thick. It's really all full of thorns and poison ivy, and it's like, couldn't believe it. When I was walking back there, you can see this broken branch right here. It was barely hanging on, and the bike path that had been cut, and it was actually like a spearhead sticking out of the ground. And it was really kind of bothering me how unsafe this trail was. So over here, you may not see it, but this is the bike trail. And this is a bunch of dried branches that are right about eye level, that if they went a little to the side, a little to the left, they would have impaled themselves. And as thick as what this came by and actually let us know about it. So again, this was very unsafe, and we wanted to take action on this. So what we did was we came in with grinder. We basically went all the way down the river line, all the way down here, all the way back up. We cleaned out this entire area. We actually cleaned a spot next to the Lions Club that was our property, and we cleaned up where the sled hill was actually getting overgrown. And the guy that was doing the grinding for us, he had an app that figured out how much area he actually cleaned, and he figured that we reclaimed 3 acres of property. And so after we reclaimed that area, we wanted to find out from everybody what we should do with that area. So what we first started out doing, this yellow line that goes around the outside is actually going to be a walking trail along the river. And that's actually a half-mile walk. The white, what's here, is where our kids are helping out build the BMX bike trail. And with our Heart and Soul project of trying to get people to volunteer, this is the first time that I've ever had anyone approach me and say, I want to help. We have probably about 17 kids, and we have 4 parents that are out there helping us design and build this right now, which is more than anything I've ever had before. What we're doing with this BMX bike trail is we kind of realized that with our playscape, we only go up to 8, 10 years old. And then it's like, what do the kids have to do? And that's where, when we found this old bike trail and we wanted to make it safe, this red area right here is where they had built this moguls and hills, and it happened to be on Wheezy Lagan's property. So I had to take these kids out there and explain to them that you missed it by 20 feet. But it took them 3 years to build that bike trail. And I told them, if you come over here and help me work on this and design this and basically help me build this, quite frankly, I can get the DPW, I can get the skidster over here. We can move a lot of stuff very quickly. And in a few months, we should be able to do what you did in a few years. So these kids, it's been amazing. I got kids when we're out there working, and even parents that are like, what are you out there doing? Can we help? When are you going to be out here again? So it just so happened, I had one of the parent volunteers that had just come back from a 7-day vacation with his kids, and they went to 6 different BMX parks. And they basically told me all the things that I should have out here. And they said that what you want to do is different skill levels. So what we plan to do in this section right here is called a pump track. And what it is it's just small little gradual hills that go in a circle. And that will be for like our beginner kids that want to go out there and learn how to handle these hills and how to race and go around. What we plan to do with the rest of this is to make some BMX bike trails that are more intermediate, that it turns out that the way that they're designing it is to make it a challenging course. You can go around the challenge if you don't feel you have the skill set, but yet if you want to go over it or balance on it, you're building up your skills riding these bikes. And so anyway, I can't say enough about the kids and the parents that have been helping me so far. We basically went through there. They use hand tools. I'm the only one that's been using a chainsaw to cut the logs and everything, but they're doing a wonderful job. So anyway, now we took something that was relatively unsafe and unusable, and now we're making it into something that's usable. And of course, I'm overseeing everything, making sure it's safe. So one of the other things that Dave was working on is down here in this corner that we're trying to acquire that piece of property. One of the main things with this piece of property is that we continue our river walk all the way out to Van Dyke. Not only that, we'd be able to expand our bike trails and our walk trails, have parking out here. And the other main thing, again, is the safety, is the fact that now if an emergency vehicle was called to our sled hill, to the baseball diamond, to this BMX track, that now we have access to the south side of the river, where otherwise they had to park in the parking lot, they had to go over the bridge, and they had to go to wherever in the park someone might have been injured. And again, time is normally not your friend when someone gets hurt like that. So we also continue doing our mowing, our trimming of the grass, our snow removal, pavilion rental, park cleanup. We did have the Boy Scouts come out and clean the park once already to get us prepared for the Lions Club when we did our Easter egg hunt. So we do have our regular things that we do. But this is our new big thorn in the side. And I can't tell you how many times people come to me that they're out in the park, that their kids bring their scooters, their skateboards, and they can't figure out why the tennis court isn't open. And this is just a couple pictures showing you that you have a steel pipe sticking out of it, that it's cracking all over the place. There's parts where it's heaving up, and it's not safe. I don't feel comfortable allowing anyone on there, so that's why I keep the gate locked. However, this is a prime piece of real estate that could really be turned into something. So currently, this is what I would like to offer. And one of the other things that happened is we were watching the kids playing basketball on the side there, and because this property and the asphalt slanted at an angle like this, there's a lot of times that the ball actually goes over the fence. And the wastewater treatment guys were telling us how many times kids actually climb the fence or the gate to get their ball. So it's another basically thorn in our side that it's not a very practical place to play basketball. Plus the fact that if someone's playing basketball and the music in the park's going on, you have someone dribbling the ball and it's not the best situation. So what we'd like to propose is we would like the tennis court made into a multi-purpose court. And we were looking at the amount of area that we have. If you took half of that tennis court, we could make 2 half-court basketball courts. So we would move that basketball net that we have into this area, along with the fact that we would purchase another one. We would also put in 2 pickleball courts on the other end, because that seems to be very popular, and it seems to be a game that not only adults can play, but children can play. So literally, the grandparents could come and play with their grandchildren. So to keep the balls from going into each other's court, we would divide it by a batting pitching net that would go right down the middle of those 2. On the other half of the court, we were looking at putting in that skateboard park that the kids were talking about. what we did was we found a set that has a warranty that it can be left outside for over 10 years. And the price is right around $14,000 for that. And the thing is that the way that set is made, there's wheels on it so that it can be pushed to the side if it's not being used. And we could use that half to basically do roller hockey. So what we're doing is basically making this open to everybody, different age groups, different skill sets, and again, making it challenging, giving it a variety to the point where people want to be there. That if someone brings their kids to the playscape, that if they have older kids, they can be shooting baskets or playing pickleball, or they could be rollerblading or using their skateboards. So the thing is that when Connors was our village manager, he had a price tag of redoing that tennis court for $50,000. When I went out and got quotes, the best one I got that everyone told me that I should take was from Total Asphalt, and it's now at $70,000 to redo that tennis court. What they would do is they would rip out, remove all the old asphalt. They would bring in crushed concrete. They would put in a layer 2.5 inches thick of regular asphalt, and then they would put an 1.5 inch fine asphalt coating on top of that. That would give us our smooth surface. So what I was coming to you tonight is I'm asking you for $17,500, and I have a township meeting next Monday to go to them for $17,500. And what I would be doing then, after, if I can get the support of the village and the township, is I would basically then be going to either Four Corners Foundation or Lapeer Foundation to try and get a grant that would be matching, that we could basically be able to take care of this. So the portion that I'm looking from the council would be $17,500. And what I'd like to remind everybody is, I do realize things are tough. We don't have a lot of money. However, when you're patching a road, it may only affect a couple people in that area. If you put the money into the park, this seems to be for all the residents in Elmont, not just a couple people in this area. So I would like to know if you could vote on that to basically put this in your budget, that we could get some funding so that we can get this done, because it will not be any cheaper to do it next year, I'm sure. And this gives you an idea of what our skate park would look like. You have the half pikes over here, you have quarter pikes over here, you have a rail, and you have some little ramps here. And what we figured again was, we're not spending $350,000 to have the swimming pool type skate park. This is just to get us started, to find out just how many kids are interested in this, but yet it'd be a high enough skill level that they wouldn't be bored that it was just a little bump. So it seemed like a pretty nice set. With this skate park set, Tony Hawk has a matching grant that if we came up with $7,000 after our tennis court's redone, they would match it with another $7,000. So we would only be paying for half of this. So our main idea is to making the area usable for residents of Elmont of all ages, sizes, skills, and abilities, We would like to offer a variety of activities for people to choose from. We want people to be proud of their park. We would like this park to be a destination that brings more people into our town. And most of all, we want it to be safe. So phase 1 would be support of the Elmont Village and Township. Phase 2, we'd apply for the grants. Phase 3, we repair the tennis court. Phase 4, we'd order the equipment. Phase 5, we'd install. And Phase 6, we'd paint the lines on it for all the different type of sports. And then as far as our 5-year plan, we put together some things that we would like to see in the future. First was a sunshade for the bandstand. I was able to find a 20 by 10 for $500. We also had requests to extend the band, so I was finding and doing some material costs, and it was roughly about $10,000 to add on to that and replace sections. The other thing is that we need a storage barn. The little shed that we have basically just stores our ice rink on the inside of it, and there's not much room for anything else. And with all these different things that we plan on doing with the walking trail, with the BMX bike trail, with the skate park, we're going to need some signage that's going to be up there that would say, at your own risk, wear helmets, wear wrist guards, knee pads, whatever would make it safe. One of our members was looking into trying to get a dog park, and quotes came back for $15,000 to $20,000 with about $2,500 for activities for the dogs to do in those parks. The other day when I was out at the park, I noticed that the DPW was actually working on repairing the bike trail that goes out to Kidder. We've figured that an estimate on that was about $10,000, that eventually that is going to need repairs. One of the other things, as I mentioned before, was we have property that's on the north side of the river. Thing is we don't know where it is. We actually need a survey done so that we know where our property lines actually are. And that was coming in at like $15,000 to get a survey of the park. We also found out that some of the members wanted synthetic ice so that we weren't basically restricted by the weather and the temperature for people to go skating in the winter time. That we would probably put this right underneath the pavilion, and that would keep the snow off of it and make it easier for everybody. And that was coming in at $38,000. Wheezy Lagans had brought us some information about sports surface that we would put on top of that tennis court. It basically eliminates like skin burns and ankle injuries because it actually gives. And that quote was coming in at $160,000. And then also we were asking different people with the baseball league as to if they are going to use that baseball diamond out in the field. And they have been using it, but they were only going to use it for a couple practices. And then again, it goes back to possibly not being used, or it not basically being used to its full potential. So what we wanted to do was turn that baseball diamond into a combination baseball diamond soccer field, because as I remember trying to find soccer spots when you're have young kids, it was actually kind of difficult to actually find some spots. And again, we'd like to see the park used to its fullest potential. And one of the other things we came up with that we thought we would do, just because nobody else has one, is some zip lines. And we would basically only put them up on special occasions when we could get some volunteers. We would not leave it up permanently, because we found out that, like Frankenmuth, what they do is they literally have to have people at stations and showing people how to do things. And so basically we didn't want to leave it unattended, but we thought this would really be something interesting for the kids to do that nobody else has. And so anyway, that's the end of my presentation, to show you what we did, what we're doing, and where we'd like to be. And if any money becomes available with this federal money that they were saying may be coming out, and it has to be spent by 2024, we just want to show you that we are ready, and we'd like to have a portion of that. Any questions?
Want us to cut you a check tonight?
Yeah. Cash if you got it. Small bills.
Yes. Well, it is impressive that you have taken your chairman of the park board so seriously. Very thorough. Great job of presenting all of it. And because I would think that we would trying to address some of the issues that have been raised tonight, some of the proposals in our upcoming budget workshop, right? And you know what we can afford. I mean, most of the ideas presented appear to be positive on and would be a benefit. And I concur with your vision that the park is a very important facility in our community. That enhances the community, and what you have put before us tonight is certainly very interesting. And if we had all the money, and we'll just have to see what we can afford. But it's an excellent presentation, and I've given us a lot of food for thought. Council, any comments, discussions, anything you want to engage in with Bernie or what he's proposed?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up was that there wasn't a mention of the master plan for parks and recreation. So that was a document that was put together that sort of outlined the priorities for the park, giving an opportunity for public input, or at least public notice, so that people could comment on the plan, and so there would be community buy-in and council and township buy-in. So I would just, if you haven't, reviewed that and kind of compared, sort of what you're laying out here to that plan, I think that's a really important piece that we need to address.
As a matter of fact, I was reading the 5-year plan, and it was talking about how we needed to expand walking trails, install a bike trail, and how we needed to have more activities for different age groups. And it had some of them listed, but I would say we modernized it. And as far as public opinion, last year we basically had done all the surveys and music in the park. We had gone to the football game, the homecoming game. We wanted the public's input as to what they wanted to see, and this is what they came up with. And so we did have that. And as far as our future 5-year plan, we did receive from Dave Rose basic quote for helping us do our 5-year plan, which was roughly $9,000 to do the plan, and then there was an option for about $10,000 worth of stuff for helping us out with other optional items. I did get together with Kim, and we really don't understand why we would need that much of Rose's help, because we have an editable version of the 5-year plan that we had. We can change the format as to what they currently have with up-to-date information. And there was a couple public meetings that we needed to have, but also what we've already done would count towards a lot of those meetings that they were talking about that we would need to complete the 5-year plan so that we would be eligible for the DNR grants. And so again, I didn't see where we would have them do the whole thing. We would save ourselves $19,000 by doing it ourselves. Maybe Ro wants to come in and just review our final copy to make sure that we meet all the qualifications. But again, we're very used to working on a very limited budget. So this BMX bike trail, quite frankly, when the DPW digs out a water line and they have to fill it in with sand and they have extra topsoil, they bring it over, they dump it for us, and we're using that for our hills. We're also using the trees that we cut up to kind of reinforce those hills. When the grinder went through, they basically turned everything into wood chips. The DPW now, when they get wood chips, will be keeping that, and they will be reinforcing our walking trail with wood chips. So again, we're minimizing every one of our expenditures. However, when it comes to this tennis court, our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do. We have to go to the outside on this.
When is the master plan good through, our current one? Do you know?
This year.
So this year.
So by the end of the year, we had to fill it out, which we basically figured this is our outline right here as to what we're going to put in for information of what we want to see in the next 5 years.
Well, I think that's very timely, is to have that so it's sort of laid out for the community and the respective boards of these are the plans, this is the direction we want to head, and building in some of the groundwork that you've already done with gaining public input, I think is very important. But yeah, I think that's very good that plan is due to get updated, and I agree, $9,000 seems outrageous for a fee.
That'd be my budget.
Right.
That I would just spend for a 5-year plan, and then we couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, and as we were talking about applying for grants and things, and I think that is a very good point, is that a lot of time DNR or other agencies or funding sources, they are going to want to see that outlined plan, and a commitment from the community. So it's important that we do get it updated, but yeah, maybe not for that price tag.
That was the other thing, was they wanted community activity in our 5-year plan. And it's just amazing how people are coming out of the woodwork. When we were doing the Easter egg hunt, Mr. Matthews walked by, he says, "You're Mr. Kalka?" He says, "I hear you're with the parks." He says, "I do roofs, windows, and gutters." And he says, "I noticed that your gutter is falling off on the pavilion. Would you mind if I come over here with my ladder and fix this?" And it's like, well, this is, again, like the first time I've had people actually offer to do it rather than say, "Hey, you should fix that." And how many times people had told me, that they didn't want to help because I was being paid for this. And they didn't realize that we're just volunteers. We're not being paid. So for people to come out of the woodwork, to grab a shovel, to grab a rake, to start moving some of these wood chips and everything, it is just amazing. And so many people have come to me again asking, why isn't that tennis court being used? So I've been told before, we need to come up with a plan. And quite frankly, if you give me that money, I will be the project manager and I will make sure that that job gets done. And I don't come any cheaper. So
Last time anybody played tennis on it? On a court?
it's been a very long time.
Um, with all the removal of the vegetation, are you guys talked at all about replanting some tree? I mean, putting back some of the habitat that was taken away for the BMX trail, or maybe buffer zones along the river. With that, it's going to be more erosion, more people walking on the trail. Please stay out of the wetlands. It's, you know, I also see balancing it for use of the public, but also as maintaining it as green space and making sure we're being responsible when we're developing the park and adding these improvements, that we're also thinking of the other side and providing for water quality benefits, habitat, and those other things that are important aspects of the park.
DTE does have that relief program, and they're looking for places to put trees.
Yeah, there's a big community forestry grant program right now.
Quite frankly, when we did it last time, we were kind of squeezing it in because we had no place to put them.
Yeah, I'm talking more about along the river's edge. Like, there's a lot of erosion there, a lot of improvements that could be made as far as making sure we're stabilizing those stream banks, kind of as opposed to putting more things along them. So I would just be careful of that and maybe seek out some input
So
on how
he
to
was,
do that
he
responsibly.
was unable to get the grinder too close to the river without falling in. So there is still a lot of vegetation there. You can see a lot of vegetation even growing back now that the sun can actually get down to it. And the fact that the walking trail is right along the river there, it's just wood chips. So it's kind of filling in where any erosion would be, it's catching it. So I don't anticipate that being a problem.
Spend a little time over there. I haven't been over there since it got all cleared. So.
By the way, your plants that you planted by the bench, they're coming up.
Yeah, the girls were excited to see those. Mm-hmm.
That's a couple of other items is Boy Scouts met with us the other day. On Friday nights, they want to have movie night at the park. And so far, no one has reserved the park on Friday nights. So we were going to have that as an activity. There's also a Scout Jamboree that they want to have at the park to get more kids to join. And we have an Eagle Scout that is going through and picking out a couple projects to do. And he should get back with us next week. So, anything else? I'm on a roll.
Yeah, for Parker Scouts, he's a lifeguard right now, we're working towards his Eagle. He's not an Eagle yet.
He's got to do the project to be an
The
Eagle.
project and complete his merit badge requirements before he can be called an Eagle. But he's an Eagle candidate, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
great presentation. We went from 2 or 3 years ago where they said, can we have $12,000 so we can start looking at park equipment, to this. So I commend you on the effort of this. I think I'm in line with Steve that I don't know if I can commit to 17.5 until we have the budget hearing to see where the budget's at and all that, but I think we already increased it to 12.5 last year on a yearly basis, so moving that to 17 and voting on it sometime in May or first of June, I can see that happening. My concern is we're talking about also it's good because we've been talking about a skate park for 10 years. But my concern is when you start talking about skate parks and BMX parks and roller hockey, are we looking at what kind of liability costs are we looking at in case there's some kind of
Some quotes as to additional insurance that we would need. We were actually surprised how low it was. It really wasn't that expensive. Again, once you put up the sign that says, skate at your own risk, we recommend you wear a helmet, knee pads, wrist guards, and if they don't, well, according to the insurance company, we're.
So what happens if I'm BMX and I have on my wrist guards and my helmet and I have a catastrophic incident? How are we covered?
Governmental immunity.
Is that? Okay. Secondly, your phase here, because we're talking 17.5 just for the resurfacing of the tennis courts, which I think is very much needed. But with the original phases, you were talking about the skate park and the pickleball courts and the costs associated with them. What is the timeline for all of those if we're doing 17.5 just to do the resurfacing this year?
So
Because you're talking about another 7,000 for the skate park alone, and then I don't know what the cost was for the pickleball and all the other associated costs of those things.
just a few $100 for those. As I was talking to Kim earlier, we wanted to make sure that we didn't do this before we have the Heritage Festival. That they wanted to have it in the tennis court for one more year at least. And I didn't want to have us redo it and then put a bunch of stakes and holes through it. So we would make it after the Heritage Festival, which is the end of September, which is running into the end of the year.
Right, that's the 17.5. That's the 17.5 for the resurfacing. So we're looking at the other additional items in the next budget year because of winter.
Possibly run into next spring.
Okay.
That's why I was only proposing,
I just wanted to get a vision because first we said 17.5, then we're saying 7,000, then we're saying, so.
it's first step.
Okay.
It's phase one.
Very, very well organized. So, and your efforts always appreciated. Not only for our program contributions.
All right.
City Council?
Tell you my life's history to keep going.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. Very, very well done. Okay. Open discussion, item number 2, preliminary capital project equipment list for fiscal year 2023 budget. Kim, what do we do with this?
This was just a list of items that have been brought up in our department head budget meetings, just something to consider as far as projected costs. And we wanted to give this list to you for council to maybe prioritize what projects should be done in what order. Obviously, it depends on grants, funding, that type of stuff. So, but the other thing I wanted to have council consider is if we want to make a decision on what we want to use the ARPA funds for. We're getting approximately 292,000. It just has to be planned by December 2024, but it has to be done by all expenses paid by December of 2026. So we do have time, but it's just something to keep in the back of your minds as to where you want those funds to go.
I mean, looking at this, so if we had 50 million bucks, we'd be in great shape.
Right.
And so one of the items that brought up, it's been brought up over the years and emphasized within recent meetings, was a new DPW building, garage, salt shed. Aside from all the other bases for doing that, is protecting the significant amounts of money we're spending on our equipment and on being properly protected. But it only costs $953,000.
That's including the salt shed though, too.
So the 293 would, pay for a quarter of it, yeah.
Right.
A question on those funds, didn't we designate 50,000 coming out of that for water, pipe removal?
We discussed it. I mean, there wasn't an official motion.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what you provided to us here, this would be part of our discussion at the budget workshop.
Correct.
Okay. Picking priorities. Okay. Any comments or discussion from council as to the items listed here, priorities?
During the budget workshop, could we have the criteria that the ARPA funds need to be within?
Sure.
Anybody else on the capital project equipment list? Okay, moving on to open discussion, item number 3, ordinance 153, fire prevention code ordinance. The way I understand, we can't vote on this tonight, right? But what I understand is it's adopting the state fire code.
Right.
International fire code, I'm sorry.
Right, and I'm just trying to follow the policy where we don't just bring something up for first reading without discussing, putting it in open
Right.
discussion first. So,
Okay, all right.
Chief Smith requested this from Manager Trent, basically updating the fire code to the current 2021 version, and appointing the fire chief as the fire prevention official. That way it doesn't have to be changed, and then only vote on it if something happens with the fire chief and we have to have a fire prevention official. So
Is it required by state law that our village ordinance complies with the international fire code? And I know this is pretty standard practice. I know that much, but.
I haven't read that act, so I don't know if that's
Mm-hmm.
what is required to comply with that public act. I would assume, but
Yeah, well, I'm presuming that our fire department is presently complying with an older version of the International
Yes.
Fire Code. Yeah.
Can't remember what version it was. Do you remember?
It's 2009.
Huh,
And
yeah.
part of what drove this coming to your review for initial review tonight was that in dealing with some code enforcement issues with the Dollar General store, is that the Chief Smith was actually interfacing with the state fire marshal and looking for some support from that end. And after reviewing what is our local ordinance, the recommendation was you folks really need to get up to speed with the latest and greatest. And then we found that we had some issues with who the designate is. Who is that official that can go and do the enforcement, write tickets, et cetera. And so that's where this comes into play too.
This is different.
Something else. I would imagine that there's been some significant improvement.
Have we ever?
13 years later?
Like this before? I don't remember literally in 2009.
Yes. Well, I don't know when 155.2 was adopted, but I would assume it's around that.
1972.
I think we need to make sure we understand what this is going to do to our industrial park as well. Because one of the things, I did a little research on this, one of the things that it changes is 3D printing. So if they have industrial and non-industrial 3D printing, which industrial, okay, they have to have permits, and that's going to be in the industrial park. Non-industrial could potentially impact residents because you can buy a 3D printer. So I want to make sure that we're not going to cause a problem for our residents if we adopt an international fire code that impacts the non-residential or the non-industrial section of the village.
3D printers, they're referred to in the code, international code?
Very first slides in what changed in the 2021 is the addition of additive manufacturing, which is 3D printers.
Making guns.
No, not
Okay.
making guns. It's
We can make a gun on 3D printer.
but industrial 3D printing uses powdered metal, which is explosive. It can be if it gets the right fuel, air, and all that, and usually uses industrial lasers, which Bernie can tell you all about, to sinter materials together. The other thing that they use is inert gas to keep that from happening. So on an industrial level, that's stuff that they deal with all the time. Non-industrial uses what they call FDM, but it's basically plastic ribbon. Looks like your string trimmer plastic, and it prints it out. And they don't have to have inert gases, but it is combustible. And that's why I'm sure that they put it in there. So I would just want to make sure that we understand what the changes are before we, from one to another. Now,
Do we need expertise to properly educate us on this as to whether potentially would present problems for our residents? Do we have, what you're telling us is there's a potential issue there, a potential problem. And how do we make a decision as to whether residents are exposed or properly protected, or how do we
have
know?
it in the ordinance that anything is grandfathered prior to this?
What is the change that you can't have one, or you have to comply with?
You have to comply with the
code?
new code.
Can you send the link to the presentation that you were reviewing?
If you could forward it to me as well, I'd appreciate it.
Forward it to all of us.
Yeah, I'll send it.
Yeah.
to-
Yeah, Okay,
Kim, so she
Yeah.
can send it out to everybody.
sounds like it might be a head scratcher.
Or maybe the state fire marshal knows what the changes are and can inform us.
Sure, yeah, state fire marshal does. I don't know if state fire marshal is gonna come here, though.
Maybe the fire chief.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't hurt to have Don here. We'd love to see him. And ask him about water usage. Why not? Okay, any further discussion on this ordinance? We've had our discussion period, so
So do we want
Do
to
we-
keep it an open discussion until we find out what those changes are?
ordinarily before Pete opened up this issue, I figured, next meeting, but I'm not so sure right now.
I think it
Everybody else?
sounds like we're still discussing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, sounds like the
Okay.
important
Need
things to
more
discuss.
information.
There are fire hazards, but you need to protect residents. And so I consider the possibility of inviting the fire chief, so you can discuss it with us. So we hopefully we know what we're doing. That would be useful, helpful. Okay. So maybe invite him to the next meeting. So obviously, since he approached our manager to present this, he wants to pass the ordinance. So one way to get the ordinance passed is to come meet with us. Sure, he'd love to attend one of our meetings. Hi, Don. Okay, I think that finishes off our agenda for this evening. So Manager Trent, anything to bring to council?
Just a quick update that there's still some economic activity getting generated in our community. Received a phone call today from a developer, or actually the engineer on behalf of his client. Apparently there is a contract that's been signed for the purchase of the movie theater and the medical building. And that client is going through a 90-day due diligence, and they've asked to come and have a powwow with me next week. So we'll see what conceptual drawings they're contemplating for that area, but it looks like it's something that they're committed to and wanting to move forward. So I think that's an excellent opportunity for us to evaluate, and they're interested in finding out what is it that we want as well. You know, that they're flexible. But they want to come in
Heart
and
and soul, we want a movie theater. Turn it back into a movie theater.
On that note, on the south side of the theater, from the building to the road, there was question about who's responsible for the way the sidewalk is there and the way the drainage is there. It's a mess.
Mhm.
And the previous owner, there was discussions about who was responsible for that, so that might be one thing you might want to point out.
Yeah, that issue never got resolved. The old sidewalk is stacked up on the east, behind the east side of the building.
Well, after rain, I mean, if you drove by there tonight, that, from the street sign going east on, I forget what street that is.
That-
Where the theater.
Is that Mill?
Yeah, the theater.
Isn't it Mill
Yeah,
Street? Yeah.
It's, it's usually a lake.
Yeah. It is a problem. And it was an item of dispute, I think, between DDA and Mr. Francis. Mr. Francis went on DDA to pick it up and pay for it, and that didn't fly. That had no wings at all. Yeah, and it was just left there as a mess all these years.
Well, it'd be better to get on front, be out in front.
Yeah.
Something like that.
They should be aware of it, right? Yeah. And any indication whatsoever what it might be used for?
some sort of commercial, retail possibly. They're planning on not saving that building. They're planning on demolishing it. They think there's too much work to be done with that facility. and they would plan for some improvements with the medical building.
So, as far as you know, is the agreement for purchase of both buildings?
Yes.
Good. Wheels in action. Or I can move my law office.
Well, they're still interested in having some tenants in that building from
Yeah.
the
But, yeah,
brief conversation I had today.
Fortunately for my law practice, we have an existing written lease with a few years to go yet. So they buy subject to the lease, but, and you might want to mention that too. 'Cause I would speculate that that hasn't been mentioned by the owner to the purchaser. There's a subject lease, which some attorney might want to say, here you go. Here's the lease. But in any event, okay, that's exciting news. Anything
Planning
else?
Commission will be meeting this Thursday, and we have a gentleman who is in the process of acquiring the Saddlery building and planning on doing a major addition. The gentleman's in the furniture business, and he's going to be just giving a presentation on a preliminary site plan. There will be no votes or anything taken. It's just, he'd just like to be able to share his vision for what he hopes to do with that property and get some feedback, and then come back to the table at a future date for a preliminary site plan approval going forward. So again, another economic activity for that structure. Also, we've gotten feedback from all of the other entities within the village and the township. We had proposed a future joint meeting on May 24th that fit in with your folks' schedule. Everybody seems to be accommodating your desire to have this joint meeting for a community heart and soul presentation that evening at 7 o'clock. And we're looking forward to probably about 35 to 40 people being in attendance here that night. So I just wanted to confirm with you that that's a go for May 24th. That's great. Yeah, I got that feedback. A lot of representation from the DDA as well. And Supervisor Bowman has told me he's getting good feedback from the Township Planning Commission and Board as well. That's it.
Thank you. Kim?
I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Dyke's concern about the flags. The flags are down. They have been ordered. We did remove those 2 pine trees out front. I think it looks better. You can actually see the municipal building now from the road. So, and it's not going to interfere with the flags once they go back up. So that's it.
Mr. President, I just remembered, I just wanted to, I could bring this forward next week at the budget meeting, but we did submit a fiscal year 23 grant request to Congresswoman McLean, and they have confirmed that they are in receipt of our submission, and that they're going to try their best to push it through and get it part of the next year's appropriation bill. So we'll see how that plays out as the summer months go on and Congress works on next year's budget. So just wanted to let you know that that is, a possibility that we might be able to get that funding.
It's good to hear. Great. Very good. Wayne?
Just wondering how the June Drive water line's going.
Slowly, Mr. Novak, thank you for asking that. That slipped my mind, but Mr. Novak tells me that his lawyer will be reviewing the easement draft this week. So apparently his surgery is successful and he's back in the saddle. So.
Yeah, and missing Mr. Alec, I'll take up his torch. How are we doing with the Kingsbrook payments? Are they keeping up with their allotted payments as they have designated?
Kingsbrook? Yeah, yes. Yeah, we should be getting a check from them this week, so. Or, I'm sorry, next week. I got my weeks mixed up. Yeah, the bill's due next week, but yeah, they've been, we've been seeing 15,000 plus come in from them every month now.
One thing I wanted to ask council's opinion on was that previously we had the manager submit to us a weekly report. And I found myself kind of missing that, just kind of the little things that are going on around town, kind of heads up on issues that are up and coming. I think, David, you kind of more of like an every other week before council, we have an update, but I really find myself missing sort of that weekly touch-in with what's going on around town. I don't know if council feels the same way or not. If that's something you could try implementing again, I think it would be helpful for us.
I appreciate it.
I would say try, I would say let's. It's sort of falling off a little toward Mike's tenure. We have a whole meeting, but in the past before that, before Ali, and when we asked Ali to do it, we had a lot of issues that we could talk about that they would fall through the cracks, and I don't want that happening.
Yeah, Mike wrote like a real detailed report. It was just really helpful knowing what was going on and sort of what people were complaining about and who he was meeting with. So I don't, if it's helpful, I don't know, Kim, if you still have some of those that you could forward, just so you could see examples of what we used to receive. It might be helpful for you.
Those reports were put out by the manager Friday, at the end of the week. So it would also be prior to our council meeting. We'd have an opportunity to review that. And it would help us prepare for the council meeting as well.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Mhm.
It did
Right.
sort of help inform us before we would show up for council.
My take on and that is an important issue. I'm glad you brought it up. Was the way I looked at it initially is our manager was just getting into the job and has to travel some distance to do it, so it wasn't the easiest thing for him. But yeah, at some point we really need to implement that again, so that we're fully informed. Think that can be handled?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
You ask, you shall receive.
All right, great. Thank you.
Or Tim says we're implementing. Whatever. Tim's a little more forceful. And he's 6'4", so. So you all set, Mindy? Jackie?
Peter asked my question, so I'm
Okay,
good.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah. A good meeting, folks. Good presentation, Kim, and the budget and banners, and again, commending Bernie. It was just an excellent presentation, and you're taking your job, your position very seriously, and real benefit to the community. So, thanks. Admire your work. We're adjourned.